The rain in the Sector 4 slums didn't fall. It burned thick with the metallic tang of the city's industrial heart. Sloane tightened the leather straps of her tactical corset, her fingers brushing the glowing blue rune etched into the skin of her throat. As a siren, her voice was her weapon, a frequency designed to shatter werewolf bones and paralyze vampire hearts. Tonight, her mission was simple. Extract the captive humans from the Nightshade stronghold and vanish into the neon fog dot. But the Nightshade Pact didn't play by the rules of the truce. Before Sloane could utter a single note, the shadows moved. A wall of pure muscle and fur slammed into her, pinning her against a rusted brick wall. The air left her lungs in a sharp gasp. She looked up and stared directly into the abyss. Killian, the Alpha of the Nightshades, loomed over her. He was a vision of lethal elegance, platinum hair slicked back, eyes the color of a winter storm, and a suit that cost more than the entire sector. "A siren in my garden," Killian purred, his voice a low, vibrating hum that made the rune on her neck flare with heat. "Do you have any idea how much a head like yours is worth to the Council?" Sloane tried to scream, to use her sonic gift, but Killian's hand clamped over her mouth. His skin was scorching, a stark contrast to the freezing rain. "Don't," he hissed, his storm-gray eyes suddenly bleeding into a predatory gold. "If you vibrate those vocal cords, I'll rip them out. And I'd hate to ruin such a pretty neck before I get what I need." He didn't kill her. To Sloane's horror, he dragged her deep into the bowels of the Nightshade estate, a place where luxury met savagery. But as they passed through the living quarters, she saw the truth. The Wadaha wasn't thriving. Shifters lay on tattered furs, their veins turning a sickly, glowing silver. The silver fever, an incurable plague that turned a wolf's own blood. Against them, Killian threw her into a glass-walled cell in his private laboratory. He stripped off his jacket, revealing shoulders mapped with scars from silver bullets, the marks of a king who fought on the front lines. "You're going to kill me anyway," Sloane spat, clutching the bars. "Why the theatrics, Alpha?" "Because you are a freak of nature, Sloane," Killian said, approaching the glass. He held up a vial of her blood, taken during her unconscious transport. It glowed with a faint, ethereal gold light. "Your lineage is untainted. Your blood carries the resonance of the siren's song, the only frequency that can shatter the silver crystals in a shifter's veins." The deal was struck in the dead of night. Killian needed her blood to save his dying pack. Sloane needed her sister, who had been taken by the Vampire High Council weeks ago. "I give you my blood," Sloane whispered, her voice trembling. "And you storm the Council's Spire to get her back." "A blood pact," Killian agreed, his voice dropping an octave. "But a siren's blood is volatile. It requires a tether. To stabilize the cure, our essences must merge." The ritual was an agony of intimacy. Killian knelt before her, his large, scarred hands gripping her thighs to keep her steady. He pressed a ritualistic obsidian blade to her palm, then his own. When their wounds met, the world exploded. Sloane felt a jagged bolt of lightning shoot up her arm and settle directly in her chest. It wasn't just blood flowing between them. It was everything. She felt Killian's ancient rage, his crushing loneliness, and the dark, possessive hunger he felt the moment he saw her in the ring. At the same time, Killian gasped, his head snapping back as he felt Sloane's grief for her sister and the hidden spark of attraction she had tried so hard to bury under her hatred. The rune on Sloane's throat turned from blue to a deep, burning crimson. The bond of the damned had snapped into place. Killian collapsed against her, his forehead resting on her shoulder, his breath ragged. The Alpha, who prided himself on being untouchable, was now tethered to a human woman who wanted him dead. "What have you done?" Sloane breathed, her hand instinctively hovering over his platinum hair. Killian looked up, his eyes now permanently stained with a mix of gray and gold. He reached out, his thumb tracing the crimson rune on her neck. The touch sent a wave of forbidden heat through her entire body. "I've saved my pack," he rasped, his grip on her waist tightening until it was almost painful. "But I've damned us both. I can hear your heart, Sloane. I can taste your fear. And God help me, I can feel how much you want me to kiss you." Outside, the first howl of a healed wolf echoed through the estate, but inside the lab, the silence was predatory. Sloane realized with a jolt of terror that the Alpha didn't just want her blood anymore. He wanted her soul. And because of the Pact, he already had half of it. The bond of the damned didn't just connect their hearts. It merged their senses into a chaotic, overwhelming symphony of instinct. As they moved toward the High Council's Spire, jagged needle of glass and chrome piercing the city's smog, Sloane could feel Killian's phantom hunger gnawing at her stomach. In return, Killian flinched every time a high-pitched siren wailed in the distance, his ears vibrating with her sonic sensitivity. "Stay behind me," Killian growled, his voice echoing not just in the air, but inside Sloane's skull. He was dressed in tactical matte black armor, a sleek predator in his natural habitat. "I'm not a pet, Killian," Sloane snapped back, checking the charge on her vocal dampeners. "And I can feel your heart racing. Don't pretend you're not terrified of what happens if we fail." Killian stopped, spinning around to trap her between his arms against the cold metal of the transport vehicle. His platinum hair was disheveled, and his eyes burned with a mixture of gold and storm gray. "I'm not afraid of dying, Sloane. I'm afraid of what this bond will do to me if you bleed out in that tower. If you die, a part of my soul goes dark forever. Do you understand the weight of that?" Before she could answer, he leaned in, his lips hovering an inch from hers. The crimson rune on her throat pulsed like a second heartbeat. The hatred was still there, but it was being drawn by a tidal wave of possessive necessity. He wasn't just her alpha. He was her anchor. The Spire was a fortress of death. As they breached the lower levels, the Council's vampire guards descended like swarms of bats. Sloane didn't hesitate. She ripped off her dampener and let out a piercing, high-frequency scream. But this time, it was different. Because of the blood pact, her voice carried the weight of Killian's alpha roar. The shockwave didn't just shatter glass. It liquefied the internal organs of the vampires instantly. Killian moved in the wake of her voice, a blur of silver-white fury. He fought with a strength boosted by Sloane's adrenaline. They were a perfect, lethal Machine 2 species, one soul. They found Sloane's sister, Clara, in the penthouse laboratory, encased in a stasis pod. She was being used as a biological battery for the vampire elders. But as Sloane rushed to the pod, a cold, mocking laughter filled the room. Adriel, the High Chancellor of the Council, stepped from the shadows. He looked ancient, his skin like translucent parchment. "The Alpha and the Siren," he mused, glancing at the glowing bond on their skin. "You've done the impossible. You've created a bridge. Do you have any idea how much power is in that blood?" Adriel didn't attack Killian. He targeted the bond. Using a dark blood magic ritual, he began to drain the energy directly from the rune on Sloane's neck. Sloane fell to her knees, her vision turning black. She felt her life force being pulled out, and through the bond, she felt Killian's strength failing as well. He was gasping for air, his wolf receding as the silver fever held at bay by Sloane's blood began to flare up again. "Killian!" "Take it," Sloane gasped, her hand reaching out for him. "No," he groaned, crawling toward her. "It will kill you. If you don't take it, he wins." She screamed, her voice cracking. "Take the rest of my blood. Claim the bond." In a moment of pure, agonizing desperation, Killian lunged. But he didn't bite her neck to kill. He sank his fangs into the rune itself, completing the circuit. It wasn't an act of violence. It was a total surrender. He drank her light, and in return, he flooded her mind with every ounce of his centuries-old will to survive. The explosion of energy was blinding. The bond of the damned shattered its limits, evolving into something the world hadn't seen in millennia, a true union. Killian rose, his eyes glowing a brilliant celestial white. He didn't just command the wolves anymore. He commanded the very air. With a single wave of his hand, he tore the shadows from Adriel's body, leaving the vampire elder to wither into ash in the moonlight. The tower shook as the stasis pods shattered. Sloane caught her sister as she fell, but her eyes remained on Killian. He looked at her, the white light fading back into the gray gold of their shared life. The mission was over, but their world was changed. The silver fever was cured, but the Nightshade Pack was no longer just a wolf pack. They were the start of a new breed. Back at the estate, as the sun began to rise over the city, Killian stood on the balcony, watching the horizon. Sloane approached him, her throat still marked by the crimson scar of the rune, now a permanent mark of her royalty among his people. "You could have let me go," she said softly. "The pact is fulfilled. My sister is safe." Killian turned, his gaze heavy and unyielding. He walked to her, wrapping a large, scarred hand around the back of her neck, his thumb tracing the scar. "The pact is fulfilled, Sloane. But the bond is eternal." He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. "You are the voice of this Wadaha, and I am your shield. If you leave, you take my heart with you. So stay. Rule these shadows with me." Sloane looked into the eyes of the monster she had learned to love. She realized she didn't want the silence of her old life. She wanted the roar of the new one. "I'm not going anywhere." "Alpha," she whispered Dot, and for the first time, the city fell silent as the wolf and the siren shared a kiss that promised a new era of blood and bone.